The Citizen Mike Show. News. Commentary. Interviews. Citizen Mike Show starts now.
Welcome to the Citizen Mike Show. Thanks for tuning in. We do appreciate it. My name is Mike Brodinski. On my right, Ralph Tomaselli, the editor of the Record Journal, and a special guest in the studio tonight, Jaime Hine. Jaime Hine is on the Planning and Zoning Commission, but he is not here in an official capacity representing the commission. We've got to be very careful about that. But we are going to talk about some zoning matters. Jaime, thanks for coming on the Citizen Mike Show.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so we thought of you actually back in the summer when the Planning and Zoning Commission passed a new zone, and it ended up as a major story in the Record Journal.
Absolutely.
And it got our interest because we've been talking about these kinds of issues,
yeah.
Forever. I just want to take a couple of sentences from this article and pass it over to you, Jaime, for a little more detail. But I'm skipping it, from sentence to sentence here. It says the commissioner approved a new zone, and then in another vote, it approved a map because a zone applies a certain geography, and we'll get into a little bit later. But they established that the new regulations are aimed at promoting economic growth and attracting developers. There's a quote here from the town planner, Casey Hand. It's meant to create opportunity, it's meant to facilitate development, so on and so forth, so on and so forth, so on and so forth. Jim Seichter, who is I need one more so on and so forth. Jim Seichter, who's the chairman of the Planning and Zoning Commission, said the vision for the project should be the community's vision to create a more vibrant town center. The commission is attempting to create atmosphere where developers will look at Wallingford as a community where they may want to invest and make some dough. Jaime, you were on the commission, you voted for this. Just give us a little better overview as to what you did.
Yeah, so, really the impetus for this was the plan of conservation and development. When the commission prepared the plan, they took a look at our town center, particularly our lower downtown. I think they came to the conclusion that it was neglected and needed to be revitalized. They asked us or suggested in the plan that we take a look at the regulations and see what we can do to maybe make some amendments, make some revisions to encourage some development, particularly in that area. I think most would agree that our upper downtown area is thriving, but our lower downtown is not. And so we took a look at the regulations. We made some changes in terms of how high a building could be, how many units could be in a particular piece of property, and what type of parking would be needed. And we tried to make some concessions in hopes that maybe a developer would be interested.
So what are the developers' interests in these issues that you just talked about? I mean, why does these changes help them make money or I don't get it yet. I'm not there, So you made changes in parking. Why would a developer care?
Sure.
So or the height of the building, density, why would they care about any of that?
Well, at the end of the day, a developer wants to make money. And so if they can only if they're only allowed to put 2 or 3, let's say, residential units on a given parcel of land, they're not going to make as much money as if they can put 5, 6, 7, 8 units. That's number one. So they want to maximize the number of units they want to put on.
And you helped them in that regard, I guess.
And we did. We've made some changes. We've allowed them to go potentially from 3 floors or 3 stories to 4 stories. That way they could potentially construct some more units. We've also reduced, in some respects, the number of parking spaces that they would need. And so, that also should help them increase the number of units that they can place on a property.
I get you. Ralph?
Well, I think you asked a good question about, what can regulations do? And certainly, regulations play a part, but in the other towns that we cover that are more active in economic development, and when I say more active, where
Yeah, you better explain yourself.
Right, okay.
'Cause-
Where the chief executive and the chief legislative are more involved, what developers seem to be interested in is tax abatement, which is a long word for tax breaks. They are looking for help with financing. Sometimes that involves access to tax credits. They're looking for various grants or programs that allow developers to clean up properties. And these things come from, like I said, the chief executive, the chief legislative, and also state representatives have to be involved, and often your Congress people too. And that's what I don't see happening in Wallingford. I think you have some regulations, and I think you have a really good economic development specialist in Tim Ryan, but I don't always see it on the mayor's agenda. I don't always see it on the council's agenda. I don't see them working with Mary Mashinsky and Len Fasano or Rosa DeLauro, but if I've missed it,
Well,
let me know.
I'm going to be the devil's advocate.
Go ahead, be the devil's advocate.
And by the way, I need to explain,
Yeah.
before I go there, as to where we are today. Did you see where we are? Did
Well,
you
we're
look
at the
around your
train
surroundings?
station.
We're at the Wallingford train station.
Yes, right.
Very important to this whole issue of economic. I understand. It allegedly, as Colbert, allegedly it has a lot to do with future economic development. So
Right.
I went down to the train station.
Good.
Yeah, go ahead.
No. I shouldn't have interrupted because I know you want to play devil's advocate.
Yeah.
But of course, where we're sitting is really the product of that combined local, state, federal. I mean, this train station doesn't happen through regulations.
Oh, but it is kind of fun waiting for
Good.
the 909 to go to Springfield so we can, go to the casinos.
Go ahead,
That's good. Well, you were talking about the mayor, the executive branch,
Yeah.
the council being more involved. If they were here, so I'm going to be
Yeah, be
their
the devil's advocate. Good.
What do you want them to do? What do you
Okay.
want them to do?
Well, what I'd like them to do
Yeah.
is consider tax incentives, tax breaks.
Well, they say we've got something that's kind of they have a little program there.
Okay.
For larger projects.
What I'd like
I
them
mean,
to do is be a conduit between maybe private developers and the various government programs that exist to help developers.
All right. I'm going to go back to Jamie. Jamie, two
Yeah.
things, two things. To Ralph's point, what do you think of that? Ralph's point is the executive branch and administrative agencies and the council dropping the ball. And the other thing I wanted to ask you, combine this in your answer, has what you've done on the Planning and Zoning Commission, is that likely to move the needle and stir more development in any material way, or is it going to be another 10 years before we see a new project? What's your thought?
Yeah, so I sort of agree with everything that's been said. I don't. What we have done here is only part of the solution, but it's got to be a team effort. It really does, and I think I made this point at a workshop that we had as we're developing these regulations. The way I see it is one of the biggest problems that we have, particularly in that lower downtown area, is that we have small parcels. And as we were just talking, developers can't do much with a small parcel of land. They want something, they're in this game to make money. They want a big parcel of land so that they can develop it and make more money. With those small parcels, they can't do that. And so one of the things that I think the town could do, which hopefully they do more of, they just bought the brothers' property. But when some of these properties come up for sale down there, if the town comes in, purchases those properties and combines them, because a developer's not going to wait the 10, 20 years that it's going to take to combine these properties to do something with. But the town has all the time in the world. The town can do that. And then it markets the property to the developer, and now what you start to see is little by little some revitalization of that area.
I think what you're saying is make an appropriation and whatever it takes, kind of $600,000, $800,000, $1 million, depending on the parcel, and land bank it for a period of time until there's an opportunity to combine it with another. Do I?
That's exactly right. And
Let's
now,
see if that satisfy Ralph. I'm not sure.
I think that, would it satisfy me?
Yeah,
No. Yes, no.
You're the foil.
But I do, could I envision an apartment complex on that square where Brothers is and there's some other businesses and it's right alongside the tracks? Yeah, can I envision that? And yes, I can.
I want to hold off on that, Brothers, because it's rather a narrow,
Right,
it's one parcel, and we're talking about general policy.
Right. I'm talking about that
Right.
getting all
But
those
I
properties.
want to know,
Right.
Ralph, as just an observer,
Yeah.
you write, not only
Right.
read the paper, you write it.
Right.
If this move by the Planning and Zoning Commission, together with whatever the town may have in place, is going to change the scene in any material way.
I'm sorry. Yeah,
Is this zone change going to make a difference?
Well, I think the zone change is a start, but no, on its own, I don't know. I mean, developers, I don't think react to zone changes. That may partially motivate them, but they need a lot more than zone changes, I think.
You agree?
I agree. I agree with that.
Pivot. I want to pivot to a
Yeah.
related concept, but it's a little bit different. You and I have talked to death about economic development. That phrase.
Yeah.
And it's been thrown around and
Right.
not thrown around. It's been used carefully in various campaigns for mayor, council, and everything else.
Right.
But I want to know what that means, what economic development means, and why we value it so much. Ralph, I'm going to go to you. We talked about this off camera and on
Right.
camera a dozen times.
Right.
I want to go to you first, and then get Jamie to mop up on
Okay.
economic development. So what? Why are you in love with it?
Well,
What does it
one
mean?
thing economic development can mean to me as
Yeah.
as a resident is the ability to, enhance, expand the tax base commercially, and if you're expanding the commercial business tax base, you're potentially avoiding, you might be providing some relief to the residential tax base.
Is that it?
No,
I
no,
just want- I'm not-
no,
I'm
I
not
think that-
challenging
no,
you.
No,
I
no,
just
no.
wanna make sure I
think
got your
that's
answer.
one very narrow, pragmatic view of economic
Is that
development.
90% of it?
No, I
a
think it's
mill
more
rate
than that.
play?
I
Well,
tried to pick something that I could square off and
we'll come back to
explain.
that. Jamie, why is economic development to be so valued? Why?
Well,
What's
I
the
think
point?
it allows it's for the benefit of the residents in terms of jobs, in terms of lowered taxes, in terms of expanded services. It allows the town to offer, additional services to their residents.
So again, I'm going to be the devil's advocate. I'm going
good.
to Jamie and then back to you. So let's say we spend $1.5 million on a couple of parcels, and now three parcels are cobbled together, and a larger building goes up. On the upper floors, it's residential, which is the new zone.
Okay.
The new zone is residential, and the bottom is supposed to be retail.
Right.
But an Eastern Mountain Sports ain't coming in, and neither is a Talbot's, and neither is,
Right.
neither is a LL Bean, that ain't coming
No.
in. But the bottom floor is retail, and the apartments are filled up. And I will grant you that there is a small mill rate impact to the good.
Right.
I'll grant you that. Maybe not even one project, maybe not even noticeable, but every little bit helps. But Jamie, as far as services, if you're really serious about buying something, you're going to go to Amazon or go to one of the malls. You're going to get it online. As far as jobs, well, there may be some opportunities in some of the retail shops, but that ain't going to be much. So I'm sort of challenging the premise, and I want to. What I'm really trying to do is isolate it. Is this fundamentally a mill rate play? That's where I'm going. I don't mean being direct. Your reaction to my comments?
Well, I understand your point, except that those properties down there that we're specifically talking about, in the area that we're specifically talking about, we're getting nothing from those areas right now.
A very small tax bill.
Small. If the taxes are even being paid.
I'm talking about the general area that your new zone covers, which is basically Center Street, Lower Center Street, and a couple of roads off Center Street. I'm talking generally about that area.
Yeah, so, in that area, there's a lot of empty storefronts.
Yeah.
There's a lot of property that is not being used efficiently. And so the idea is that we want to fill those areas. And whether that's, now understand, I also wanted to point out that this town center zone is really for commercial purposes. I mean, the residential aspect to it is really secondary. The area down, Parker Place, where they're building the second phase of Parker Place, and the transit-oriented district, that's more focused on residential with commercial as a secondary aspect. But here, in the town center zone, what we're really looking for is to bring some business in. And I think overall what you're going to see is you're going to see increased taxes. You're going to see increased revenue when those businesses are filled. And especially now at this point, if you start to have some more residents come in that town's or transit-oriented district and are going to be looking for more services. The hope is that you're going to get some young professionals that are going to be using public transportation and are going to be looking for, some nice restaurants, some cafes, some small clothing stores within walking distance.
So I'm not a believer yet.
Okay.
I just got to say. But let's talk about the Brothers property, and I'll figure out what I really think as we talk about the Brothers property. So the town is going to buy the Brothers property. News reports indicate it's going to be demolished, and the mayor's going to make it into parking. That gives the town control over much bigger space, sort of an unbroken acreage, is what word I'll use, I guess. Sort of unbroken, although there's still some small parcels off to the left as you look down the hill in back of the old train station that the town does not control. So, again, Ralph, from your perspective, so what?
Yeah.
You bought the property, so what?
Right, and
But I don't want to steer your opinion.
No.
here.
I think that my initial reaction is parking for what? I'm not really sure, and I don't ask that like in a cynical or a.
Well, you should.
Okay,
you could. This is a Citizen Mike show.
Right.
I mean, you could do
because I'm just not sure what the parking's for. And I don't expect you to answer.
Well,
it.
I have an answer, but I
Okay.
want to hear Jamie's first.
My view is that the end game cannot be that we buy that property to demolish it and use it for parking. That cannot be the end game. If that's the end game, we should have never bought the property. The end game has got to be that we're going to look to purchase the other buildings on that parcel, or surrounding that parking lot. And then either market it to a developer to come in and develop something there, or, I suppose you could create a larger green, or you could do something like that, but the end game cannot be parking.
So, Ralph, I think my interpretation of Jamie's comments is this is okay as an interim solution to get everyone to vote yes to buy it,
Right.
but not as Jamie's, not as an end game. Your view, so maybe it's just an interim solution. The mayor needs a justification to buy the property. It's very difficult to tell the Record Journal reporter, well, we're going to buy it, and we don't have a real specific idea what we're going to do. I mean,
Well, but I think
that's not.
what was
that's
more a little more confusing to me was that I think both the mayor and I guess it was Tom Laffin indicated that this was some like long-term plan that they had been thinking about something down there. I imagine it's brothers for a long time, and that just kind of caught me by surprise.
Well, if anyone would know about a long-term plan, it would be Jamie Hine.
Okay.
Jamie, have you heard of this long-term plan?
I have not. No. My understanding is that there's been some interest in the brothers' property for some time.
Okay, the
But-
brothers'
Maybe that's all they meant. Maybe
Right,
that's all
but
Tom
I know,
Laffin meant.
and I want to let Jimmy. Oh, so all right, but see, that's not the way I took it. I took it as like it was part. Like, what is some big long-term
Vision.
plan of like to buy the brothers' property? That doesn't seem very long-term. I'm
Right.
sorry.
I
being cynical and snarky.
Well,
okay?
this is a Citizen Mike show.
You're right.
This is where you
Okay.
do it,
No, I mean, I think that's true. I mean, my understanding was that there had been some back and forth about possibly purchasing it. The price was too high, and so they waited it out, and ultimately it came to an auction, and they were able to
Yeah.
purchase it. But
My assessment of the reality of this is there was interest in buying it, and maybe some of the councilors, and maybe a contributory reason of the mayor is to do exactly what you and Jamie are thinking about, buying it, and at some future date, it'll be part of some larger project. Maybe that was their thinking, but they're not on the record as saying that.
Okay.
As far as they can go on the record is, well, initially, because we don't want to have a vacant building there,
Right,
we
right.
gotta
I
tear it
get
down.
that. I get
And once
that.
you tear a building down, what are you going to do? Well, you kind of pave it over or throw some stone and people can park on it. I don't think the issue of long-term vision was presented to all 9 councilors, and I bet you'd get 9 different answers if you presented it a very narrow question and with follow-up questions. So where do you see this brother's property in 5 years, 10 years, 15 years? What's your plan A? I think you get a lot of different answers, but they all can agree on buying it now. And the mayor ain't going to be the mayor forever, and so he says, parking, but that could change with any vote. That could change on a vote,
So is there something
change on a different mayor.
Is there something top secret about the long-term plan there?
Well,
what is
yes,
the
there
secret?
is.
What?
The town has, yes, there is a secret. I'm being cynical. The
Right.
town, regardless of departments, has not always been forthright as to where it's going with certain measures. Sure, there's a 5-year capital plan of development, pave this road, pave that road, pave this road. But they have trouble articulating it, and maybe that they don't really know.
Well, right.
It's one interim step after another, and it leads to sort of a chaotic decision-making process.
Okay, and this gets back to my original point because
Yeah, I like your
in
question.
places where this works,
Yeah,
Southington, Meriden, for example, long before they buy any property,
Mm-hmm.
make any regulations, do anything, they articulate the vision.
well,
Because if you don't articulate the vision, how do people know where you're going? How do business owners know what's going? How can they make decisions?
two words come to mind as you express that, as you vent your frustration. Two words come to mind.
What?
Wooding Kaplan. Remember that? It was a
Yeah.
referendum. That was the one time in memory that I can think of
Right.
that the town expresses long-term vision, and they fell flat on their face. And I think now the mayor has burn marks all over his fingers, and he doesn't want to get his hands on any long-term vision because he can't seem to sell it.
Well,
At least based on the Wooding Kaplan. And the other,
Okay.
two words, Simpson parking lot.
Yeah, right.
That
But-
was another long-term
That was a
vision.
long-term. I wanna
It fell flat on his face. So they have a poor track record of selling it, and I think now they say, I don't know, just parking.
Okay, and then I want to let Jamie jump in here, but you bring up Wooding Kaplan.
Yeah.
Which I actually.
great reluctance.
Okay, which I actually
As-
covered as a reporter.
Oh, wow.
The purchase. And I
are.
can say, that's how long ago it was. I can say, when it was purchased, there was no vision. And only vision was like dragged out, what, 20 years later or 15? So that.
And it took a study group, which they ignored.
Right. So people were so aggravated
Yeah.
that they couldn't get any vision for so long. Then when you came up with something, you're right.
Yeah,
That-
Jamie.
okay.
Well, no, I don't think there is a vision currently. I don't think the mayor has a vision for this. I'm hoping that somebody else does, but I don't think he does. I mean, from my perspective, you look at it, you make this purchase, how much longer is he going to stay in office? Another term, maybe 2 terms. Nothing's going to get done with that property in that amount of time. So his vision is not going to be the vision for this, ultimately, for this property. And I'm just hoping that somebody else has a vision for it, because it's not going to be the mayor's vision, I don't think.
I need to walk back slightly a comment I made about
Yeah.
15 minutes ago, and that's with respect to the mayor's rationale for buying this. I think what came through to me in the newspaper,
Right.
which isn't necessarily 100% of his remarks, or
No, right.
I mean,
No, good point.
But what came through to me in the newspaper was the statement that we can expect that lower downtown to be overflowing with people and businesses. It's going to be bustling and vibrant because of the new zone and because of the incentive housing zone. There's going to be such a demand for parking, we're ahead of the game. Obviously, I'm overstating it,
Right.
I'm
No,
exaggerating,
right.
a part for humor and to be playful, but I think that sort of came through as a rationale. I didn't take it all that seriously. I don't think you did either, and so that's how that works. So I want to just put on the table sort of another alternative. I'm going to put it right over there, not too close. I don't want to get too attached to it. I don't want for that property, the brothers' property. I was trying to pull teeth out of you guys, and I think I finally did. That development is primarily a mill rate play, for the additional taxes that you would get. I'm not sure that we don't know. We don't know what incremental taxes we're going to get because of a development down there. But another thing that adds to the value of properties is how the area looks, how the neighborhood feels about it. So there are other ways to increase the value of the property, and property owners that surround that brother's parcel have a business interest in improving their property when business conditions, are right, and they should do it on their own. So how would a park or some green space or a splash pad in the summer fit in? Would that create an atmosphere around the area where cafes would begin to pop up in the existing buildings and they could overlook the park, or maybe not? Now, park is very controversial because it takes it off the tax roll, so I'm not wedded. I put the idea over here, sort of in the middle of the table. But in 5 or 7 or 8 years, the plan of conservation and development will be so dusty, everyone will forgot about it, and people don't take it that seriously anyway, in my view. And even though it may not be consistent with a written letter, we got to have development, I'm not so sure. Maybe some green, maybe, some parking, and a splash pad or a fountain would change the atmosphere of that area, and maybe maybe that's a less speculative way of immediately improving how it looks. Too wild and crazy?
No, not at
Are
all.
you sure it's not too wild
No,
and crazy?
not at
Because
all.
it goes contrary to everything Tim Ryan has said.
It's not. It's certainly
If
one
he
of the.
was here, he would bash me over the
Well,
bean.
and that's okay, and that's
Okay.
how we reach decisions, and you know. But one reason I'd consider it is, you know, you have a lot of what I would call densely populated areas surrounding that parking lot.
Yeah.
Wallingford doesn't have much of a town green.
Yeah.
And town greens are nice, and they do.
They attract
they attract
people.
Right. So though that would be the reason. For those reasons, I'd at least consider it.
Let's get a design.
Right.
We'll just start with that. Jamie, am I crazy here? What do you, boy,
No.
He's not going with me on
Right.
this. He's not doing it, I can tell.
No, I want to say you're crazy.
Oh,
I'm going to go that far.
go ahead.
No,
embrace
I
it.
mean, you know, I would like to see what the plans are for some of the buildings around that. So, for example, you have the old train station.
Yeah.
You know, now that your idea might make some sense depending upon what they're doing with the train station.
High-end
you know?
steakhouse.
Right. And then parking might make more sense there.
Yeah.
But okay, go ahead. I'm
I mean,
Go
sorry.
ahead,
you know, one of my, and you tell me if I'm crazy, but one of my thoughts is I would love to see at least somewhere in the downtown area a children's museum. And I say that because wherever you look, where those have popped up, the areas around them have developed. And it attracts the type of people, the young families that you want to attract to our town. Now, if one was put up either in the old train station or in that area, and now you have a park with a splash pad, now that makes a lot more sense, in my mind. And then especially if you have some of these young professionals who are moving into these apartments and they see the families coming, now maybe they stay when they're ready to start a family.
Certainly it's family-friendly.
Right. No.
Gives kids something to do in the summertime. Because who knows about community pool? Who knows where that's going to go? We do, really. I want to get back to the zone and bring it back to Jamie, maybe just for a few more details, not a lot, just whatever you can share with us on the height of the building. I think you said 3.5 stories. Some people would be, just sort of work us through some of these other changes.
Sure. So one of the things that we did was we set density limits.
That's how many people can be living in a particular acre or something like that.
Yeah. So right now, or in what was the CA6 zone, which is now our town center zone, you had the lots had to be at least, I think it was 6,000 square feet.
It's pretty small.
Small, right? The lots now have to be at least 25,000 square feet. Okay?
And an acre being about 40,000 square
About
feet.
40,
roughly.
44,000, yeah.
Yeah.
And so what we did, and now under the old rules, if you wanted to put residential units on the upper floors, you had to get a special permit for that. Now you can have residential units on the upper floors as of right, okay? But you're limited as to how many units you can have, which is why, you know, the purpose for these density limits. So if your lot is grandfathered in under 25,000 square feet, you can only have 26 units per acre. If you have a larger lot of 25,000 square feet or more, you can have 32 units per acre.
So a developer can make more dough,
Sure.
renting out or selling
Right.
condominiums, renting out apartments or selling condominiums.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So that was one of the things that we did. We also incorporated. So what had happened is back in January of 2017, the commission had made some parking changes to the CA6 zone, and we continued and adopted those for the new town center zone. And what they did is they reduced some of the parking requirements, but they also said to developers or property owners, if you can't provide enough parking on your parcel for the number of units that you have or the use that you're making of those units, we're going to give you some options. You can talk to your neighbor and see if you can share some of their parking spaces. You can pay into a fund, $2,000 per space that you are short.
A one-time fee.
One-time fee.
3,000, is that what you said?
2,000.
2,000.
And that's there's actually a state statute
That allows
that allows towns to adopt that type of program.
That's the way out, just have very few parking spaces, pay in that 2,000,
I
a
think
lot
that's
cheaper
good.
in the
I
long
think
run.
that's a good
you know?
one.
Okay.
So you can also, if you're short one space, you can propose to put a bike rack on your property, so that to encourage people to pedal to your store or
Or the train station that you
or
guys
you-
are promising me will
yeah.
transform the lower downtown.
So there's and the other option would be to offer some public spaces for certain times during the day. So if you're short a couple spaces, but you offer a couple of them up when they're not being used as public parking spaces.
So as I get this, I just want to put it in a sort of crude layman's language here. So in the old days, if a developer had a parcel and he had an idea for a project, he'd go down to the planning and zoning office and he would show them the project. And he said, see, I got room for 10 spaces. And planning and zoning, well, that's not enough. You got to have much more than that. Well, now under the new rules, the town is more lenient and he may be able to get away
Right.
with 10 spaces. And if he still doesn't have enough, he pays in a small amount. $2,000, you mortgage that, on a 20-year mortgage, peanuts, just pay the $2,000. And it goes into the dog pound? Where's it go? Where's this money go?
It does go into a
library,
a special fund.
SCOW, or where?
No, it does go into a special fund, and it can only be used for certain purposes under the statute. It's all statutory.
Sort of planning and zoning type purposes.
Yeah.
Like maybe internet for the planning and zoning office.
No.
Never,
No.
we're not going there.
Well, that
we're
would
not
be
going
nice.
there.
That would be nice.
No, we're not. We're not going there. Ralph, I know you
No,
want to talk about
I'm
that.
not.
We got a couple minutes left, and I
Okay.
just want to veer way off of this and pick up a conversation you and I had. I think it was about 2 weeks ago, and I think I
Oh, yeah.
took you by surprise
Right.
with some skeptical comments I had about
Right.
regionalization, because I think one of the candidates, actually I think it's Ned Lamont, was sort of touting that. But a lot of candidates have. Local governments, if you want to save money, regionalize. But that idea is not new. That idea has been around a long, long, long time. The town of Wallingford recently tried to regionalize its call center. That has not gotten off the ground. It may never get off the ground. And it's just hard for me to imagine what would be regionalized and what voters would allow to be regionalized. And I don't think the press has tried to get specific with some of the candidates. It just regionalized. Or they may refer you to, I have a plan, see my website, or I have a plan, go to the Regional Council of Governments or something, I don't know, but it doesn't sell it. You got to sell that. I mean,
Right.
that's a drastic, radical change to regionalize public works, police, fire. I'm not talking about cooperation agreements. I mean, we have those, at least with the police department, I believe. So I want Jamie's reaction and then your reaction,
Good.
Ralph. It seems to me that regionalization is a forward-thinking idea of the future whose time will never come. Do you agree or disagree?
I think in theory, regionalization is good. I sort of agree with you that when you get down to it, it generally very rarely happens. I mean, I grew up in Ansonia, and Derby and Ansonia had been talking about regionalizing their school systems forever. It's never happened. And in that instance, it would make perfect sense for them to do. From Wallingford's perspective, I think the devil's in the details. Who are they going to regionalize with? How are the costs going to be split? I'd be concerned about our current employees. Are they guaranteed a job?
The whole point's to lay off people. I mean, that's the whole
right.
point.
Right.
Well,
And
part of
so,
the point, facilities, I mean, maybe you save money on facilities, I guess, as long as you don't have to build a new one, but, yeah, I'm sorry.
Yeah. I mean, and certainly certain towns have more of a need for certain services than others. And so, how those costs are going to be split is going to be very important.
Yeah. Ralph?
I think Connecticut is very unique in the fact that we're prosperous enough to have all these little municipalities that have the property tax base to support all these local services that are only performed within town borders. I think that regionalization only comes about when that property tax system, or if that property tax system gives out and the property tax base can no longer support those services, and then municipalities will be forced for economic reasons to merge.
Yeah. I would concede the point on some small areas that I don't think amount to much. Like there's probably, no one would object if a health department official from Hamden inspects a sewer system in Wallingford. I mean, I don't, okay, but how
Right.
much really in the long run is that going to save? Or a restaurant permit or something, maybe those jobs could be spread out. But on the major costs that the town has, education, although Sal Menzo's coming up with a school facility study results soon, right?
Right.
But major costs are school, fire, police, public works, engineering. Those are the big departments. But we will tell Barbara Thompson that she is going to be merging her office with Hamden soon to save money, and we'll see how that goes over. She's the town clerk.
You tell her. You tell her.
Let's call it quits. Jamie, you got the final word on any thoughts that have popped into your mind as a result of our discussion?
No,
words of encouragement or not? I'm not
no,
sure.
I appreciate the topic tonight. The town center is very important. It gave me an opportunity to tell you what we've done. I think we've worked very hard. I think the chairman's worked very hard, and the town planners worked very hard. And I think it gives developers some tools, but I don't think it's the end of the story. I think we need a team effort, and hopefully we'll get that, and we'll see some development downtown.
Let's make that the final
Yeah.
word. Let's do that. Jamie Hine, thanks for coming on the Citizen Mike Show again. We do appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
And thank you, our viewers, for watching. We produce a show on Wednesdays, but Wednesday nights now, but you could see it Thursday, Friday, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday at 9 p.m. on WPAA. It's also up on YouTube. Search the Citizen Mike Wallingford channel. Or I could send you a link directly by email. Get a hold of me. Let me know that you would like that to be done every week, and I can do that. Thanks, everyone, for watching. Good night.